Someone has requested that I teach how to make meringue. Now, most meringue that we use is called a French meringue. There are 3 types of meringues. There's a Swiss meringue, there's a French meringue, and there's an Italian meringue. But today we're just going to learn the basics, and that is the French meringue. And that consists of egg whites, granulated sugar, vanilla, salt, and cream of tartar as a stabilizer. First step to making meringues is make sure everything, and I mean everything, even your hands, are free of grease. And it may look like it's clean if you pulled it out of the cabinet, but you know, sometimes maybe greasy fingers get in there. I recommend you taking all your utensils, everything you're going to use to beat these egg whites, and put it in a sink of hot soapy water. Let it soak for a good maybe 5 minutes, and then really clean them off. Now, when you take them out, make sure you don't touch it with anything greasy either. You want it absolutely grease-free. My second recommendation is use room temperature eggs because the egg whites beat up quicker and better when they're at room temperature as opposed to straight out of the fridge. All right, I also recommend always that you pre-sift like your sugar, anything that's granulated, you want to pre-sift it. Now I pre-sifted my 1/4 cup of sugar that I'm going to use today, and I'm going to show you what I got by doing that. If you can see in the bottom there, see those little bits and chunks of sugar? You know, maybe they had some moisture in them. We just don't want that. We want to make sure it's finely sifted and we don't have little chunky bits. All right, that's why we sift that. Okay, first step is we got everything grease-free, even our hands, even our countertops, whatever you're using. Now we need to separate our egg whites. Use 2 bowls. Do not separate your egg whites into your big bowl that you're going to be whipping the egg whites in. Why is that? Because sometimes when you separate an egg, you might get a little bit of the yolk. And the yolk has fat in it. That's protein. You do not want that in your egg white. So I just simply, gently smack my egg on the counter, not too hard. I'm going to separate the halves. Be careful because this is where you can break the yolk as well. And you just want it to be really careful and let the egg white run out of the shell. You can pour it into the other shell. You see, you just keep going back and forth until you get majority of the egg white. I see now that my egg yolk has started to break, so I'm going to just put that over there into my other bowl because I wouldn't want any of that egg yolk to get into my egg whites. And it's okay that you're short just a little tiny bit of egg white. It's next to impossible to get it all separated. Now I'm going to take this one and put it into my clean mixer bowl, which is out of the side of the camera, but trust me, it's there. I'm just going to pour that in. Now you ask, why don't you just crack the other egg into that bowl? Well, because I could have an accident with this one, and this could break the yolk, and I could get it into 2 egg whites, and I'd have to throw 2 egg whites away. We don't want to do that. Better to just throw 1 egg white away than 2. Same process again. Be very careful because the shell is very sharp, at least to an egg yolk. Okay, once again, put that aside. If you got egg yolks on your fingers, make sure you clean them off again because you don't want any fat on your fingers. All right, I'm going to pour this into my bowl. All right, so now we have our egg whites in the bottom of our very clean bowl. And we're just going to turn the mixer on. And let them get frothy. I'm going to take them 30 seconds to a minute. don't know if you can see that. Hopefully you can. They're starting to froth up. They're not white. They're just getting frothy. This is where now we can add our pinch of kosher salt. Remember, kosher salt has bigger granules than table salt. And I will show you, if I can, if you can see it. See, those are much larger than table salt. I'm just going to take a pinch of kosher salt. And that's exactly what it is, a pinch between your forefinger and your thumb. And we're going to put that into our egg whites. We're going to add a 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla. And a 1/4 teaspoon of cream of tartar. Cream of tartar helps to stabilize the egg whites so they hold their shape longer. It's an acid. All right. We're going to turn this back on again about medium-high and let it get to soft peaks, and I'll show you what that looks like as it gets there. Alrighty, that's gone for about a minute. If you're using a hand mixer, it may take a little longer, but you'll get the idea. See, it's starting to get stiff, and we're going to have soft peaks. Still a little bit foamy and not so white. That I can see just a little bit of yellow still left in them, so I know this is at soft peaks. It kind of wants to curl over the tip. And that's where you want to get it to before you start adding in your sugar. Right, now we're going to slowly add in our sugar. Pre-sifted sugar, right? Remember that. Very important. Turn this back up. And I'm going to turn this on to about a medium-high and add my sugar slowly. Now I'm going to turn the mixer on to high and let her whip. So you can see now the egg whites, there's no yellowish tinge to them at all. They are just white and fluffy, and they look like a marshmallow. Look at that. It holds its shape. And you can get a nice peak. You stick your whisk in there. Oh, that's a nice peak. Look how white it is. It looks like a snow-capped mountain, doesn't it? You want the meringue to be shiny and white and stiff. Now that's a good meringue. From here, you can top a pie and then finish baking it in the oven. You can pipe meringues onto Silpat mat with your piping tip and your bag and make little cookies, or you can make a pavlova. But that is how you make a French meringue. Okay, now once my meringue is all beaten up to the right consistency, I've decided I'm going to make a little meringue cookie. I'm going to fill a piping bag with a big star tip inserted with meringue. put the whole bag inside a glass and then fold it over the bag, the top part of the bag, and it makes it easier to fill so you don't get it so messy. Take my meringue, and put it into my bag. And you want to work quickly. You don't want this to sit around for a long time, because over time it can start to collapse and weep a little bit, and we don't want that. We want a nice, good, stiff meringue to work with. And you're just going to fold the bag over. Sometimes that's easier said than done. At this point in time, you don't want grease, of course, on your fingers or anything, but if there's a little tiny grease, a little bit of grease around, it's not going to damage it as much as it would at the beginning, where it wouldn't have beaten up if you'd had any type of fat. All right, squeeze out a little bit of your meringue into the bowl. Make sure you don't have any air pockets. And I'm just using a Silpat mat. It's made of silicone. It can go in your oven. And I put it on a cookie sheet. If you don't have one of these mats, you can use parchment paper. Turn your oven to 200. Make sure it doesn't go over 200, because they can burn. The idea is to just cook the meringue enough to dry it out. And I'm just going to do some swirls. Make some rosettes. You can make all different types of shapes. See how they're holding their shape? So just keep going. If you need, oops, see, I had a little air pocket in my thing. You see, if you wait, how it starts to soften a little bit. You want to do this fairly quickly and right away so you don't lose that stiffness. I'm just going to do this quickly so I can get them in the oven. All right. As you see, as I went along, this got a little more soft. This end got a little more soft, and this end was stiffer. Whoops. This is why you want to work quickly, because as you go along, they do kind of lose their shape. They don't hold it as well as your first, so you want to do this quickly. I'm going to put this pan into a 200-degree oven for 30 minutes, and we're going to let all this dry out. Okay, here are my finished meringues. Don't they look cute? They'll just dry out and get opaque, and you can pick them up and just eat them like a cookie, like candy. Oh, it's delicious. And that is how you make meringues. I like to make a smaller batch of meringues because it can collapse over time, and it's hard to work with if you're going to be piping a lot of cookies. So I recommend making smaller batches. The batch that I made for you today was 2 egg whites, 1/4 cup sifted sugar, 1/4 teaspoon vanilla, a pinch of kosher salt, and 1/4 teaspoon of cream of tartar. And that's all it was. Okay, here's our finished product, ready to serve. If you notice, it's gotten very hard. These took more than 30 minutes. I just kept them in there until they got totally dried out. Make sure they're crisp and hard. You should easily be able to peel them off your Silpat mat or your parchment paper when they are totally done. To store these, you want to store them in an airtight container, because just the moisture from the air can start to soften them over time. There are many other uses for meringue, and this is just one example.